Blood looks different under club lights, like spilled ink instead of life draining away. That's what Zara Okoye would think later, when she could think at all. But right now, in this frozen moment with bass vibrating through her chest and fear tasting like copper on her tongue, all she could process was this. She'd stopped running, and that decision was either going to save her life or end it. 3 months. 92 days of looking over her shoulder, of that emotionless face appearing everywhere, outside her apartment, across from the hospital, in the reflection of coffee shop windows. 92 days of police officers with sympathetic eyes and useless advice. Without evidence, ma'am. Have you considered changing your routine? Maybe you're just stressed from work? Maybe she was losing her mind. Maybe the 12-hour shifts at Seoul General's trauma unit were finally breaking her. Maybe the cheap vanilla body spray she bought in bulk from the dollar store wasn't enough to mask the smell of other people's blood that seemed permanently embedded in her scrubs. But no, he was real. And tonight he was here. Zara stood at the entrance of Crimson Eclipse, Seoul's most exclusive nightclub, wearing her only good dress, a black number she'd found at a thrift store 3 years ago, the fabric slightly shiny from too many washes. Her practical nurse's shoes had been traded for borrowed heels that pinched. She'd made herself as invisible as possible her whole life, perfecting the art of blending into walls, of taking up minimal space, of apologizing for existing. Tonight, she needed to disappear into a different kind of invisibility, the anonymity of Seoul's elite, the safety of a crowd too self-absorbed to notice one more exhausted black woman trying to forget she was being hunted. The bouncer looked at her with barely concealed skepticism. Her dress cost less than his watch. The people in line behind her wore casual confidence, like expensive cologne. They belonged here. She was an imposter. But she'd paid the cover charge with money she should have used for groceries, and desperation makes you brave in ways dignity never could. "Enjoy your evening," the bouncer said finally, stepping aside. The bass hit her first, then the lights, purple and blue cutting through manufactured fog. Bodies moved in choreographed chaos, designer clothes brushing against designer skin. The air smelled expensive, imported liquor, French perfume, and money that never had to count pennies. Zara moved carefully through the crowd, making herself small out of habit. Nobody looked at her. Nobody ever did. She was 31 years old and had perfected the art of being invisible. It was a survival skill learned early. In a world that either fetishized or feared black women, invisibility was armor. She found a spot near the edge of the dance floor, half hidden behind a marble pillar. From here, she could watch the exits. She could see everyone coming. She could. Her breath stopped. He was at the bar. Her stalker. Same unremarkable face, same emotionless eyes, same casual stance that made her skin crawl. He was scanning the crowd methodically, a hunter who knew his prey was near. Panic seized Zara's chest like a fist. She couldn't breathe. The music was too loud. The room was too small. 3 months of running, and he'd still found her. The police couldn't help. Nobody could help. She turned to flee and collided with a wall of expensive fabric and muscle. Careful. The voice was silk over razor blades, a Korean accent that made English sound dangerous and beautiful simultaneously. Zara looked up and up, because the man she'd crashed into was easily 6'2", and everything about him screamed money and power and run. Min-seok Choi wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than her annual salary. His black shirt was unbuttoned at the throat, revealing the edge of intricate tattoos. She caught glimpses of what looked like a tiger's face, geometric patterns that spoke of traditional Korean ink. His jaw was sharp enough to cut glass, his dark hair styled with casual precision, and his eyes. His eyes were obsidian, black and unreadable and focused entirely on her with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe for an entirely different reason. The crowd around them had instinctively created space, a bubble of deference that nobody questioned. People glanced their way and quickly looked elsewhere. The air felt different near him, charged with unspoken authority. "I'm sorry," Zara stammered, stepping back. His hand caught her elbow, not grabbing, just steadying. His palm was scarred and calloused despite the expensive watch on his wrist, despite the manicured nails. These were hands that had done violence. "You're shaking." It wasn't a question. Those obsidian eyes catalogued everything: her cheap dress, her fear, the way she kept glancing toward the bar. He followed her gaze with predatory precision. That's when Min-seok saw him. The unremarkable man with emotionless eyes who was now staring directly at Zara with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Something shifted in Min-seok's expression, a cold fury that flickered and disappeared so quickly Zara almost missed it. When he looked back at her, his face was controlled again, but his hand hadn't left her elbow. "Who is he?" The question was quiet, almost gentle, but carried weight that made it feel like a command. "Nobody," Zara said automatically, "because you don't burden strangers with your problems, especially not men who look like they collect problems as currency." "Try again." Still gentle. Still absolute. The stalker was moving toward them, weaving through the crowd with purpose. Zara's heart hammered against her ribs. She had maybe 30 seconds before he reached her. Before he said whatever awful thing he always said, before he invaded her space with that dead-eyed stare, before she confirmed she was truly losing her mind because nobody ever believed her about him. Desperation makes you do insane things. "Dance with me," Zara blurted out. Min-seok's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those dark eyes. Curiosity, perhaps, or calculation. "Please," she added, hating how her voice shook. "There's a man watching me. He's been following me for months. The police won't help. I just need..." She didn't know what she needed. Magic. Salvation. For someone to finally see that she was drowning. "Make him stop," she finished quietly. "Please, just make him stop." Min-seok studied her face for a long moment. Behind them, the stalker was 10 feet away. 5 feet. Close enough that Zara could smell his cologne. Cheap and cloying, nothing like the cedar and bergamot radiating from the dangerous man in front of her. "One dance," Min-seok said finally. His voice carried promise and threat in equal measure. "Let's make sure he never looks at you again." He said it like a declaration of war.
Like a vow.
Like he was sealing a contract in blood. His hand, large, warm, scarred, closed around hers, and Zara felt the world shift. This wasn't salvation. This was trading one danger for another. But at least this danger had asked permission first. Min-seok led her onto the dance floor with the confidence of a man who owned every room he entered. Behind them, Zara heard her stalker stop, felt his gaze burning into her back. But Min-seok's body was between them now, a wall of expensive suit and controlled violence. "Look at me," Min-seok commanded softly. "Not him. Me." Zara obeyed, tilting her head back to meet those obsidian eyes. Up close, she could see the details she'd missed: a small scar through his left eyebrow, the sharp intelligence in his gaze, the way his pupils dilated slightly when he looked at her. His hand settled on her waist, possessive, proprietary, protective. His other hand still held hers, thumb brushing across her knuckles in a gesture that felt almost tender. "What's your name?" he asked as they began to move. He was a good dancer, leading with subtle pressure that made it easy to follow despite her borrowed heels and jangling nerves.
"Zara."
"Zara Okoye." He repeated it like he was memorizing it, each syllable deliberate. "Zara." The Korean accent made her name sound exotic, precious. "I'm Min-seok. Is that your real name?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. His mouth curved, not quite a smile, but close. "Does it matter?" "I suppose not." They danced in silence for a moment. The music was something with a heavy beat, sensual and pulsing. Bodies pressed close around them, but Min-seok commanded space effortlessly. She noticed men in dark suits stationed around the perimeter, his security, watching everything with professional vigilance. "Your stalker is still watching," Min-seok said conversationally, his breath warm against her temple. "Don't look. Trust me." "I don't know you." "No," he agreed. "But I know fear when I see it, and I know predators when I see them." "He's been following you for how long?" 3 months. 92 days. The specificity made it real, made it clear this wasn't paranoia. Min-seok's hand tightened fractionally on her waist. The police? Sympathetic and useless. They usually are. There was contempt in his voice, the disdain of someone who operated outside conventional systems. What do you do, Zara Okoye? I'm a trauma nurse. At Seoul General. Something flickered across his face, recognition perhaps. The emergency department? ICU mostly. But I pick up ED shifts when they need coverage. His eyes narrowed slightly, studying her with new intensity. 3 weeks ago. Gunshot wound, multiple entry points. Yakuza tattoos. You didn't ask questions. Zara's breath caught. She remembered that patient, critical condition, obvious gang affiliation, suspicious circumstances. She treated him like any other patient because that was her job. People didn't stop needing medical care just because they made bad life choices. That was your man, she said slowly. He lived because of you. I was just doing my job. You were kind. Min-seok said it like kindness was rare, precious, worth remembering. You held his hand when he was scared. You spoke to him gently. You treated him like a person, not a criminal. Everyone deserves dignity in their pain. The words hung between them, weighted with meaning she didn't fully understand. Min-seok looked at her like he was seeing something he hadn't known he'd been searching for. Yes, he said finally. They do. The song shifted to something slower, more intimate. Min-seok pulled her closer, eliminating the polite distance between them. Zara's hands rested on his chest, feeling expensive fabric and solid muscle and the steady beat of his heart. His cologne was intoxicating, cedar and bergamot and something darker, more complex. He's moving toward us again, Min-seok murmured against her hair. You're Stalker. Persistent. Fear spiked through Zara's chest. What do I?
Nothing.
You do nothing. His voice was calm, absolute. I'll handle this. You don't have to, Zara. He said her name like a command, like a caress. Look at me. She met his gaze. Do you trust me? I don't know you. That's not what I asked. Did she trust him? This dangerous stranger with scarred hands and bodyguards, with eyes that promised protection and possession in equal measure? This man who moved through the world like he owned it, who looked at her like she was worth protecting, worth seeing? Yes, Zara whispered and meant it. Min-seok's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Good girl. He lifted his hand, made a subtle gesture Zara almost missed. Two of his security detail moved with precision, not aggressive, but purposeful. They intercepted her stalker 6 feet away, flanking him on either side. The conversation was quiet, invisible to most of the club, but Zara saw her stalker's face go pale. Saw him nod rapidly. Saw him turn and leave, flanked by Min-seok's men, disappearing into the crowd, and then out the door.
Just like that. Gone.
Zara stared at Min-seok in shock. What did you? He won't bother you again. Absolute certainty. How can you possibly? Because I told him what would happen if he did. Min-seok's voice was still gentle, still warm, but underneath was steel. And men like him understand consequences when they're made clear enough. What did you say to him? Nothing you need to worry about. That's not. Zara. He cupped her face with one large hand, thumb brushing her cheekbone with surprising tenderness. Some problems require solutions the police can't provide. I provided one. Accept it. She should be terrified. This man had just threatened someone, possibly with violence, possibly with worse, and he said it like he was discussing the weather. But all Zara felt was relief, so profound it made her knees weak. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. His thumb traced her bottom lip, a gesture that felt impossibly intimate. You're under my protection now. Do you understand what that means?
No.
It means anyone who threatens you answers to me. It means you're mine to protect. It means this. He gestured to the space between them, to the dance, to the moment that had shifted both their worlds. This was just the beginning. The song ended. Reality crashed back in waves. Zara stepped back from Min-seok's embrace, suddenly aware of how close they'd been, how intimate the dance had become, how completely she'd surrendered to a stranger's protection. "I should go," she said, her voice unsteady. "Should you?" Min-seok didn't try to stop her, but his gaze held her in place. "Or are you running because you're more afraid of me than you were of him?" "I don't know you."
You keep saying that.
As if knowing someone makes them safe. He pulled a card from his inner jacket pocket, black matte cardstock with a single word embossed in silver, Storm. Below it, a phone number. Nothing else. "If you need anything," Min-seok said, pressing the card into her palm, "call this number." "Not the police."
Me.
"I can't." "You can." His hand closed over hers, trapping the card between their palms. "And you will, when you realize that I'm the only one who can actually keep you safe." The arrogance should have been off-putting. Instead, it felt like certainty, like a promise carved in stone. Zara pulled her hand away, clutching the card. "What are you?" "Dangerous," Min-seok said simply. "But not to you. Never to you." He stepped back, giving her space to leave. His security detail melted back into the shadows. The club's chaos resumed around them as if the last 10 minutes had been a dream, a hallucination, a moment stolen from someone else's life. But the card in Zara's hand was real. The lingering warmth of Min-seok's touch was real. The absence of her stalker's oppressive presence was real. "Go home, Zara Okoye," Min-seok said softly. "Sleep well. You're safe tonight." "Because I made you safe," his tone implied. "Because I claimed you. Because you're mine now, whether you realize it or not." Zara fled. She grabbed her coat, ignored the knowing look from the coat check girl, and stumbled out into Seoul's humid night. Her borrowed heels clicked against pavement as she ran toward the subway station, her hand clutched around the black card. She didn't look back. She didn't see Min-seok watching her from the club's entrance, his expression unreadable. She didn't see him pull out his phone and make a call, voice low and commanding. Follow her home. Make sure she arrives safely. And find out everything about the man who is stalking her. Everything. I want his name, his address, his entire life history on my desk by morning. She didn't know that everything had changed in that moment. That one desperate request, "Could you dance with me?" had set something in motion that couldn't be stopped. That she'd caught the attention of Seoul's most dangerous man, and Min-seok Choi never let go of what he claimed as his. All Zara knew was that for the first time in 92 days, she walked home without looking over her shoulder. But she had no idea what new shadow had just replaced the old one. Sometimes the only escape from one kind of danger is to run straight into another. Zara Okoye had been invisible her whole life, until the moment she asked the wrong man for help. Or maybe, just maybe, he was exactly the right man after all. 3 days passed. 3 blessed, quiet, stalker-free days. Zara worked her usual rotation at Seoul General, 12-hour shifts that left her feet aching and her scrubs smelling like antiseptic and other people's emergencies. She came home to her cramped studio apartment in Itaewon, where the walls were thin enough to hear her neighbors' arguments and the hot water worked maybe half the time. But she came home alone. No emotionless eyes watching from across the street. No familiar silhouette in the coffee shop window. No phantom presence making her skin crawl. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt watched in a different way. Like invisible eyes followed her movements with an intensity that was somehow protective rather than predatory. It should have scared her. Somehow, it didn't. The black card sat on her nightstand.
Storm.
She'd looked up the number online, found nothing. No business listing, no social media presence, no digital footprint at all. Whoever Min-seok Choi was, he existed in shadows that didn't leave traces. On the 4th day, flowers arrived at the hospital. Zara was 3 hours into her shift, dealing with a cardiac emergency in bed 7, when one of the other nurses tapped her shoulder. "There's a delivery for you at the station." The arrangement was extravagant. White peonies and deep red roses in a crystal vase that probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget. The flowers were perfect, expensive, and arrived without a card. Zara's hands trembled as she touched the soft petals. White peonies were her favorite flower. She'd mentioned it exactly once, to a co-worker months ago. How could anyone know? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. The flowers aren't for me. Someone else knows where you work. Be careful.
M.
Ice flooded Zara's veins. She looked around the bustling emergency department, suddenly paranoid. Someone was watching. Someone knew her favorite flower. Someone wanted her to know they were still there. Before she could respond, another text arrived. I'm outside. We need to talk. Zara found Min-seok leaning against a black Mercedes in the hospital parking lot, looking completely out of place among the tired doctors and anxious family members. He wore dark jeans and a simple black t-shirt that probably cost more than her rent, his tattoos visible on his forearms, intricate Korean traditional designs that spoke of tigers and storms and violence barely contained. He straightened when he saw her, those obsidian eyes tracking her approach with predatory focus. You've been following me, Zara said without preamble. Anger felt safer than fear. Yes. No denial, no apology. For how long? 3 weeks. Since you saved my man's life. Min-seok tilted his head, studying her. You're angry. You think. Zara crossed her arms, aware of how she must look, exhausted, wearing scrubs that had seen better days, her natural hair pulled back in a practical bun. Next to his expensive casual wear and dangerous beauty, she felt small, invisible again. Except he was looking at her like she was the only thing in the world worth seeing. The stalker was easy, Min-seok said, his accent making the words sound almost gentle. One conversation, one clear explanation of consequences, and he disappeared. Permanently. What did you do to him? Nothing he didn't deserve. Min-seok pushed off the car, moving closer. But someone else is interested in you now, Zara. Someone who knows your schedule, your favorite flower, where you work. Someone who wants you to know they're watching. Maybe you sent the flowers. The accusation came out weaker than she intended. Min-seok's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Offense, maybe, or hurt that he'd even suggest it. If I wanted to give you flowers, I'd hand them to you myself. And you'd know they were for me. Then who? I'm working on it. He was close now, close enough that she could smell cedar and bergamot, close enough to see the flecks of brown in his dark eyes. But until I know who's threatening you, you're not safe. I've never been safe, Zara said tiredly. That's just life. Not anymore. Min-seok's hand came up, cupping her face with surprising gentleness. His palm was warm, calloused, scarred. You're under my protection now. That means something. It means I've traded one stalker for another.
No.
His thumb brushed her cheekbone. It means you have someone who will burn the world down to keep you safe. There's a difference. Zara should have pulled away. Should have been terrified of this dangerous man with his expensive car and bodyguards and casual admissions of violence. Instead, she leaned into his touch like she'd been starving for it. I don't understand, she whispered. Why do you care? Because you saw my man, and you didn't see a criminal. You saw someone in pain who needed help. Min-seok's voice was rough. Because you move through this world trying to be invisible, but you're the most visible thing I've ever seen. Because. He stopped, jaw clenching. Because? Zara prompted. Because I've been alone my whole life, and then I watched you hold a dying man's hand and tell him he was going to be okay, and I thought, his accent thickened with emotion. I thought there is still kindness in this world. Still softness. Still something worth protecting. The admission hung between them, vulnerable and raw. Let me take you home, Min-seok said quietly. Please. Let me make sure you're safe. The Mercedes was leather and luxury, so clean Zara felt guilty touching anything with her hospital scrubs hands. Min-seok drove with the same controlled precision he did everything else, navigating Seoul's chaotic traffic with ease. You don't have a driver? Zara asked. I like driving. It's one of the few times I'm alone. He glanced at her. Usually. Where are your bodyguards? Following at a discreet distance. Min-seok gestured to the rear-view mirror. Zara looked back and spotted 2 black SUVs maintaining careful distance behind them. That's not discreet. His mouth curved almost a smile. To normal people, they're invisible. To people who know to look, they're a warning. A warning of what? That you're mine to protect. That anyone who touches you answers to me. He said it casually, like it was simple fact rather than possessive declaration. I'm not yours, Zara said, but the protest sounded weak even to her own ears. Not yet, Min-seok agreed. But you will be. The certainty in his voice made her shiver. They drove in silence for a while. Zara watched Seoul pass by outside the window. Neon signs and crowded streets, her daily reality rendered unfamiliar from inside this cocoon of luxury. Tell me about your world, she said finally. If I'm supposedly under your protection, I should know what that means. Min-seok's hands tightened on the steering wheel. My world is not kind, Zara. It's built on blood and fear and violence. I'm not a good man. Are you a bad man? By most definitions, yes. He glanced at her, expression unreadable. I run Seoul's underworld. Drugs, weapons, protection rackets, gambling. If it's illegal and profitable, my organization controls it. Storm, Zara said, remembering the card. They call me that because I swept through the criminal hierarchy like a typhoon. I was 17 when my father was murdered by a rival syndicate. I killed everyone involved, took over their operations, built an empire on their ashes. His voice was matter-of-fact, reciting history. I've done things that would keep you awake at night. And now I'm the reason Seoul's underworld sleeps with one eye open. I'm the monster that other monsters fear. Zara absorbed this, should have been terrified, should have demanded he stop the car and let her out. Instead, she asked, why are you telling me this? Because you deserve honesty. Because if you're going to accept my protection, you need to understand who I am. He pulled up outside her apartment building, a shabby structure in a neighborhood that was one step above dangerous. His expression tightened with distaste. This is where you live. Not all of us have penthouse apartments. Defensive. Min-seok killed the engine, turned to face her fully. How much is your rent? That's none of your. How much, Zara? 800,000 won. About $600. She lifted her chin. I work 60 hours a week and send money to my mother in Lagos. I have student loans from nursing school. This is what I can afford. And your neighbors? Min-seok gestured to the building. The man on the second floor deals drugs. The woman on the third floor runs a prostitution ring. You walk through a war zone every day and call it home. It's my home. Not anymore. He pulled out his phone, started typing. I'm moving you. Excuse me? Somewhere safe. Somewhere I can actually protect you. Absolutely not. Zara grabbed his phone. You don't get to just rearrange my life because you've decided I'm your responsibility. Min-seok looked at her, really looked at her, with an intensity that stole her breath. You're not my responsibility, Zara. He stopped, jaw clenching. You're important to me, and I protect what's important. I have an apartment building in Gangnam, Min-seok said carefully. High security, safe neighborhood. There's a unit available. Let me put you there. I can't afford Gangnam. I'm not asking you to pay. Then I definitely can't accept. Why not? Frustration bled into his voice. Because I'm not a charity case. Because I don't take handouts. Because accepting gifts from men always comes with strings attached. Zara opened the car door.
Thank you for the ride.
And for whatever you did to my stalker. But I don't need you to save me. She was halfway out when Min-seok's hand closed around her wrist, not hard, but firm.
Zara, wait.
She paused, not looking back. You're right, he said quietly. I can't just demand you accept my help. But I can ask. Please, let me keep you safe.
Not as charity.
As. He struggled for words. As something I need.
For me.
Knowing you're here, in this place, with threats I can't control, it's driving me insane. Zara turned back, saw genuine distress in his eyes. This powerful, dangerous man was asking, not demanding. Was vulnerable in a way that probably cost him. I'll think about it, she said finally. Think fast. Whoever sent those flowers knows where you live, too. The reminder sent ice through her veins. Min-seok saw it, his expression softening. I'll have my men watch your building tonight. You won't see them, but they'll be there. He released her wrist, pulled another card from his wallet, this one a regular business card with a different number. This is my personal line. Not through intermediaries. You call this number, I answer. Doesn't matter when, doesn't matter why. You call, I come. Understand? Zara took the card, fingers brushing his. Why are you doing this? Because 3 weeks ago, I watched you treat a violent criminal like he was human. Because you move through the world trying to be invisible, but you're all I can see. Min-seok's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Because I've been empty my entire life, and then I saw you, and suddenly I wasn't. The admission hung in the air between them, vulnerable and devastating. Go inside, Min-seok said finally. Lock your doors. Call me if anything feels wrong. Zara nodded, climbing out of the car on shaking legs. She made it 3 steps before turning back. Min-seok. He'd rolled down the window, was watching her with those intense dark eyes.
Thank you, she said.
For seeing me. Something fierce and possessive flashed across his face. Always, Zara.
I'll always see you.
2 days later, Zara found a note on her car windshield. He can't protect you forever. Her hand shook as she photographed it, sent the image to Min-seok's personal number. His response was immediate. Stay where you are. I'm coming. He arrived in under 10 minutes, impossibly fast given Seoul's traffic. He studied the note with cold fury, his expression going dangerously blank in a way that was somehow more frightening than anger. This ends now, Min-seok said quietly. The police. The police can't help you. They deal in evidence and protocol. I deal in results. He looked at her, cupping her face with both hands. Trust me. Let me handle this my way. What does that mean? It means whoever is threatening you is about to learn what happens when they target what's mine. There was that word again.
Mine.
Possessive and absolute. I'm not. You are. Min-seok's thumbs brushed her cheekbones. Maybe you don't want to be. Maybe you're scared of what that means. But you are mine, Zara. You became mine the moment you asked me to dance, and I'm not letting you go. He kissed her forehead, gentle, reverent, completely at odds with the violence promised in his words. Pack a bag, he said against her skin. You're staying at my place until this is resolved. I can't just. Yes, you can. And you will. He stepped back, and suddenly, he wasn't asking anymore. This isn't negotiable. Someone is escalating, and I won't risk you. Pack a bag, or I'll have my men pack one for you. Either way, you're coming with me. Zara should have refused. Should have been furious at his high-handedness. Instead, she heard herself say, Give me 20 minutes. Min-seok's expression softened with relief and triumph. Good girl. Min-seok's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a building in Gangnam that probably cost more than Zara would earn in her lifetime. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul's glittering skyline. The decor was minimalist luxury, dark woods, clean lines, and art that was probably worth more than her student loans. Everything was expensive and cold and perfect. No personal touches. No photographs. No warmth. Guest room is upstairs, Min-seok said, setting down her single worn duffel bag. The contrast between her cheap luggage and his marble floors was almost comical. Bathrooms en suite. Kitchens stocked. Make yourself comfortable. This doesn't feel like a home, Zara said, looking around. It feels like a hotel. It is. Min-seok poured himself whiskey from a crystal decanter. I don't have a home. I have properties. There's a difference. Where did you grow up? His hand tightened on the glass. You don't want to know. I do. Min-seok studied her for a long moment, then gestured to the couch. Sit. If we're doing this, you should know everything. Zara sat, and Min-seok settled beside her, close but not touching, giving her space while making it clear he wanted to be near. My father owned a legitimate import business, he began, his accent thickening with memory. Good man. Honest man. He refused to pay protection money to the local syndicate, said he wouldn't fund criminals. They made an example of him. They killed him, Zara said softly. They tortured him first. Made my mother watch. Then they killed him and warned her what would happen if she spoke to the police. Min-seok's voice was eerily calm. I was 17. I watched my mother deteriorate for months. Depression, trauma, terror. She died 6 months after my father. The doctors called it heart failure. I called it murder. Min-seok. I hunted down everyone involved.
Took my time.
Made them suffer the way they'd made my parents suffer. He took a long drink. Then I took over their operations. Their contacts, their territory, their empire. Built it into something bigger. Made myself into the monster they'd created. You were 17 and traumatized, Zara said quietly. You were a child seeking justice. Justice. Min-seok laughed, the sound bitter.
No, Zara.
What I did was revenge. What I became was a monster. Don't romanticize it. She shifted closer, close enough to take the whiskey glass from his hand and set it aside. Close enough to take his scarred hands in hers. You said your mother deteriorated, Zara said. You said she died of heart failure. But I hear what you're not saying. You lost both parents to violence and trauma. You were alone. You did what you had to do to survive. I've killed people, Zara. More than I can count. I know. She did know, could see the weight of it in his eyes. But I also know you've been protecting me when you didn't have to. I know you saw me when I'd made myself invisible. I know you're capable of gentleness even though your world demands violence. Min-seok stared at her like she was speaking another language. You should be terrified of me. I know, Zara said. I should be. But instead, I feel safer than I've felt in years. Something cracked in his expression, vulnerability breaking through the careful control. He pulled her closer, gathering her against his chest, his face buried in her hair. You're dangerous, he murmured. You make me want things I can't have. Make me want to be someone I'm not. Who do you want to be? Someone good enough for you. Zara tilted her head back, meeting those obsidian eyes. Maybe you already are. He kissed her then, not gentle, not careful, but desperate and consuming. His hands cradled her face like she was precious, his mouth claiming hers with an intensity that stole her breath. She kissed him back with equal desperation, fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Min-seok pressed his forehead to hers. Stay, he whispered. Not because of the threats. Not because you need protection. Stay because you want to. Zara started. The lights went out. Min-seok moved instantly, pushing Zara behind him, phone already out. Stay down, he commanded, his voice gone cold and lethal. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing the penthouse in red. Through the windows, Zara could see the entire building had gone dark. Not a power outage, this was targeted. They cut the power, Min-seok said into his phone, speaking rapid Korean. Then, in English for Zara's benefit, buildings compromised. How many? Whatever answer he received made his jaw clench. Stay here, he ordered Zara, moving toward a panel in the wall that opened to reveal an armory that made her breath catch. Guns, knives, tactical gear. He armed himself with practiced efficiency, the businessman disappearing and the soldier emerging. Min-seok. Safe room is behind the bookshelf. Fingerprint scanner. I'm programming yours now. He grabbed her hand, pressed it to a hidden panel. It beeped. If anything happens, you go in there. You don't come out until I tell you it's safe. What's happening? Whoever's been threatening you just made a serious mistake. His smile was cold and predatory. They came after you in my home. That means war. Gunshots echoed from somewhere below. Zara flinched, and Min-seok's expression softened fractionally. I won't let anyone hurt you, he said, cupping her face. I promise. But I need you to trust me and stay safe.
Can you do that?
Zara nodded, terrified but trusting. Min-seok kissed her hard and fast, then moved toward the door where his men were gathering. She caught fragments of conversation, Korean mixed with tactical terms, numbers and positions and threat assessments. Then he was gone, disappearing into the red-lit hallway with his security detail, and Zara was alone in the penthouse with nothing but emergency lights and the sound of gunfire growing closer. She ran for the safe room, fingers shaking on the biometric scanner. The bookshelf slid aside smoothly, revealing a reinforced room with monitors showing security feeds throughout the building. On the screens, she watched Min-seok move through his building like death incarnate, precise, lethal, terrifyingly efficient. Men fell before him, and he didn't hesitate, didn't show mercy. This was the monster he'd warned her about, the violence he'd tried to protect her from seeing. But Zara couldn't look away. Because even in the violence, even in the cold efficiency of his movements, she recognized the motivation. He was protecting her. Every threat neutralized was one less person who could hurt her. Every violent act was in service of keeping her safe. The fight lasted 12 minutes. When silence finally fell, Zara counted 14 hostile bodies on the security feeds. None of Min-seok's men were down, though several were injured. Then Min-seok appeared on the penthouse camera, blood on his hands and shirt, a cut above his eyebrow. He looked directly at the camera, at her, and his expression softened. The safe room door chimed. Min-seok's voice came through the intercom. "It's over, Zara. You can come out." She emerged on shaking legs to find him waiting, still covered in blood but alive, whole, victorious. "Are you hurt?" she asked, reaching for the cut on his face. "Barely." He caught her hand, held it against his cheek. "You watched. On the monitors. You saw what I did." "Yes." And Zara studied his face, this dangerous, beautiful man who'd just killed to protect her. "And I'm glad you're okay." Something fierce blazed in his eyes. "I'm a monster, Zara." "Maybe." She stepped closer, erasing the distance between them. "But you're my monster." Min-seok kissed her like a man starving, and Zara kissed him back, tasting blood and triumph and something dangerous and addictive. When they broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. "You can't go back," he said quietly. "Not to your apartment, not to pretending this isn't happening.
You're in my world now.
Permanently." "I know. It will get worse before it gets better." "I know that too." "I'm not letting you go," he warned.
Ever.
"You're mine now." Zara smiled against his mouth. "Then I guess I'm yours." But the peace couldn't last. It never did in his world. And somewhere in Seoul's shadows, the real threat was just beginning to reveal itself. Morning light filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows, turning Seoul's skyline golden. Zara woke wrapped in Egyptian cotton sheets that probably cost more than her monthly rent, Min-seok's arm draped possessively across her waist. She studied his face in sleep. The sharp features softened, the dangerous mouth relaxed, dark hair falling across his forehead. Without the controlled intensity of his waking hours, he looked younger, almost vulnerable. The scar through his eyebrows stood out pale against his skin, a reminder of last night's violence. Last night. The attack.
The blood.
The way he'd moved through his building like death incarnate, eliminating threats with surgical precision. She should be terrified. Should be packing her single duffel bag and running back to her shabby apartment, back to invisibility, back to safety. Instead, she felt his steady heartbeat against her back and thought, "I'm home." Min-seok's eyes opened, instantly alert, no grogginess, just immediate awareness. His arm tightened around her waist. "You're still here," he murmured, voice rough with sleep and something that sounded like relief. "Where else would I be?" "Running. Most people run from me eventually." His accent was thicker in the morning, consonants sharp and vowels soft. "You watched me kill people last night. I watched you protect me. It's the same thing." "Is it?" Zara turned in his arms, facing him fully. "You're trying to scare me away." "Yes." Honest, brutal. "Because if you stay, it gets harder. If you stay, you become a permanent target. If you stay, there's no going back to normal." "I was never normal," Zara said quietly. "I was invisible, surviving, barely breathing. You made me visible. You made me feel alive. Maybe that's worth the danger." Min-seok's expression cracked, vulnerability bleeding through the careful control. He pulled her closer, burying his face in her neck, breathing her in like she was oxygen. "You're dangerous," he whispered against her skin. "You make me feel things I can't afford to feel. Make me want things I have no right to want." "Like what?" "Forever."
Family. Peace.
His lips brushed her pulse point. "A life that isn't just survival between acts of violence." Zara's heart clenched. This powerful, feared man wanted the same simple things she'd stopped letting herself want years ago. Min-seok. His phone shattered the moment, sharp, insistent buzzing. He grabbed it, his expression going cold as he read the message. "What is it?" They identified who sent the flowers, who ordered last night's attack. Min-seok sat up, already reaching for clothes. "And it's worse than I thought." Min-seok's war room was on the second floor, walls covered with monitors, maps of Seoul marked with territories and operations, a team of men working computers with the efficiency of a military operation. Zara stood beside Min-seok as he addressed his inner circle, speaking rapid Korean that she couldn't follow. Then he switched to English, either for her benefit or because what came next required absolute clarity. "Park Ji-hoon," Min-seok said, and several of his men tensed visibly. "He's the one behind the threats." "Who is he?" Zara asked. "My father's business partner. Before everything." Min-seok's voice was ice. "He was the one who told the syndicate my father wouldn't pay protection money. He's the one who orchestrated my parents' deaths so he could take over the business. I've spent 15 years hunting for proof, and he's been hiding in plain sight as a legitimate businessman." "Why target me?" "Because he's been watching me for years, waiting for a weakness he could exploit. And then you appeared." Min-seok's jaw clenched. "He sees you as leverage, a way to control me or destroy me." One of his men pulled up security footage on the main monitor. Zara watched herself entering Seoul General, leaving her apartment, walking to the subway. Weeks of surveillance, methodically documented. "He's been tracking you since I brought you here," Min-seok said, fury vibrating in his voice. "Planning this. Waiting for the right moment. What does he want? Me, dead or broken. My empire destroyed. And you." Min-seok's hand fisted. "He wants to hurt you to hurt me. To prove I'm weak. That caring about someone makes me vulnerable. Then we give him what he wants," Zara said quietly. Every man in the room turned to stare at her. "Excuse me?" Min-seok's voice was dangerously soft. "Use me as bait. Draw him out. End this." Zara met his gaze steadily. "I'm already a target. At least this way, we control the situation." "Absolutely not." Min-seok.
No.
He grabbed her arm, not hard but firm, pulling her aside from his men. His voice dropped to barely controlled fury. "You don't get to volunteer yourself as bait. You don't get to put yourself in danger to solve my problems." "Our problems," Zara corrected. "The moment I asked you to dance, they became our problems. I won't risk you. You don't get to make that choice for me." They stared at each other, both angry, both terrified for different reasons. Min-seok's control was fraying, his carefully maintained calm cracking under the weight of fear for her safety. "If I lose you," he started, then stopped, jaw clenching. "I can't. I won't. End of discussion." "You arrogant." The door burst open. One of Min-seok's men, breathing hard, face pale. "Boss, we have a problem." The monitor showed footage from Seoul General's parking garage. Zara's co-worker, the young nurse she'd covered shifts for, the one she'd comforted through a bad breakup, being shoved into a van by armed men. "Mina," Zara breathed, horror flooding her veins. A phone rang, not Min-seok's, but a burner phone one of his men produced. Min-seok answered, face going blank in that terrifying way that meant he was furious beyond expression.
He put it on speaker.
"Storm." The voice was older, cultured, speaking Korean accented English. "I believe you have something of mine. An empire built on my hard work." "Park Ji-hoon," Min-seok said, voice dead calm. "You made a mistake." "Did I?" "I have the nurse's friend. Sweet girl.
Young.
Innocent. The kind of person who doesn't deserve what's about to happen to her." Ji-hoon's voice was pleasant, conversational. Unless, of course, you give me what I want. Name your terms.
You, Storm. Just you.
Come alone to the old Yongsan warehouse. Trade yourself for the girl. Your empire falls apart without you, and I get my revenge. Simple. And Zara? Min-seok's eyes found hers across the room. She lives. She goes back to her invisible little life. She forgets you existed. That's mercy, Storm. More than you gave my men. The line went dead. Silence filled the war room. Every man present knew what Min-seok was about to do. Zara knew too. No, she said firmly. You're not going alone. I am. Min-seok was already strapping on weapons, his movements efficient and final. He has an innocent woman because of me. Because I brought you into my world. I'm ending this. It's a trap.
He'll kill you.
Probably. Min-seok checked his gun, expression blank. But Mina goes free. You go free. That's all that matters. That's not. Zara crossed to him, grabbed his face with both hands, forcing him to look at her. You don't get to sacrifice yourself. Not for me. Not like this. I've been dead inside my whole life, Zara. Until you. His hands covered hers, thumb brushing her knuckles. 3 weeks of feeling alive is more than I deserved. If I die keeping you safe, that's enough. It's not enough for me, Zara said fiercely. I just found you. I'm not losing you. Min-seok kissed her, desperate and consuming, like he was memorizing the taste of her. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet. I love you, he said simply. I should have said it sooner. Should have said it the moment I realized it. But I love you, Zara Okoye. You made me human again. Min-seok. He was already moving, issuing orders in Korean, his men mobilizing. Zara tried to follow, but one of his lieutenants, a man named Taemin who'd always been respectful to her, gently but firmly stopped her. Boss's orders, miss. You stay here, where it's safe. He's going to die. Maybe. Taemin's expression was grim. But he'll die knowing you're protected. That's all he cares about. Zara watched through the monitors as Min-seok left the building, alone, armed but outnumbered, walking into certain death to save someone he didn't know because caring about Zara meant caring about what mattered to her. She'd never loved anyone more. And she was about to lose him. Zara stood in the war room, surrounded by Min-seok's men, watching security feeds of his car driving toward Yongsan.
Toward the trap. Toward death.
How long until he arrives? She asked Taemin. 20 minutes. Maybe less. 20 minutes to save him. 20 minutes to do something, anything, to stop this suicide mission. I need a car, Zara said suddenly.
No.
Taemin didn't even look at her. Boss said you stay here. He's going to die. He's going to save you. That's what matters to him. Then he's an idiot. Zara's voice cracked. Because I don't want to be saved if it means losing him. I don't want safety if it means living without him. Don't you understand? I was barely alive before him. I was invisible, going through motions, surviving but not living. He made me real. He made me matter. And if he dies thinking I'm going to go back to that half-life, he dies not knowing me at all. The men in the room exchanged glances. Taemin studied her face, something shifting in his expression. You love him, he said. Not a question. More than safety. More than survival. More than my own life. Zara met his gaze. So either give me a car or I'm walking to Yongsan. But I'm not letting him die alone. Taemin was silent for a long moment. Then he grabbed keys from the wall. You're going to get us all killed. Probably. Zara took the keys. But at least we'll die trying to save him. The Yongsan warehouse was a skeleton of rusted metal and broken windows, sitting at the edge of Seoul's industrial district. Min-seok's car was already there when Zara arrived, her borrowed vehicle screeching to a stop outside. Taemin and 3 other men had followed despite her protests. If we're disobeying orders, Taemin had said grimly, might as well go all in. Inside the warehouse, she could hear voices, Ji-hoon's cultured tones, Min-seok's cold responses. And underneath it all, Mina's terrified crying. Zara moved through the shadows, the men flanking her with professional silence. Through gaps in the metal walls, she could see the scene inside. Min-seok, on his knees, hands behind his head. A dozen armed men surrounding him. Ji-hoon, older, distinguished, looking nothing like a monster, standing over him with a gun pointed at his head. And Mina, tied to a chair 20 feet away, sobbing. The great storm, Ji-hoon said mockingly. On his knees. Your father would be disappointed. My father would be proud I'm saving an innocent life. Min-seok's voice was calm, accepting. Which is more than you ever did. Your father was weak. Sentiment made him weak. Just like it's made you weak. Ji-hoon cocked the gun. Any last words? Just one. Min-seok's eyes found the shadows where Zara was hidden, like he'd known she would come despite his orders. Like he'd been expecting her all along. His mouth curved in the smallest smile.
Now.
Everything happened at once. Tae-min and his men burst through side entrances, guns blazing. Ji-hoon's men scattered, returning fire. Min-seok moved, no longer submissive, but lethal, disarming the guard closest to him and using him as a shield. And Zara ran for Mina. She kept low, using overturned crates and machinery as cover, her nursing training keeping her calm in crisis. She reached Mina, started cutting through the zip ties with a knife Tae-min had given her. Zara.
Mina sobbed.
What are you? You shouldn't be here. Shut up and run when I say run. A gunshot pinged off metal 6 inches from Zara's head. She flinched, kept cutting. The zip ties gave way, and she grabbed Mina's hand. Run. They ran, stumbling over debris, heading for the exit. Behind them, the firefight continued, controlled chaos, the sharp reports of gunfire echoing off metal walls. Zara shoved Mina toward the door, toward safety. Go. Get out. What about you? I'm not leaving without him. Mina fled, and Zara turned back, searching the chaos for Min-seok. She found him locked in hand-to-hand combat with Ji-hoon, both men bleeding, both fighting with desperate fury. They grappled for the gun between them, crashing into machinery, brutal and efficient. Ji-hoon was older but trained. Min-seok was younger but already injured. The fight was too even, too desperate. The gun went off. Both men froze. For a terrible moment, Zara couldn't tell who'd been shot. Then Min-seok stumbled back, hand pressed to his side, blood seeping between his fingers. No! The scream tore from her throat. Ji-hoon raised the gun for a killing shot. Time slowed. Zara saw it happening, saw the finger tightening on the trigger, saw Min-seok's expression, not fear, but relief that she was safe, that Mina had escaped, that his death would mean something. Zara didn't think. She ran. She crashed into Min-seok's side, shoving him sideways. The gun went off. Pain exploded in her shoulder, white-hot and consuming. She fell, Min-seok catching her, cradling her against his chest. No, 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 he chanted, hands pressing against her shoulder, trying to stop the bleeding. Zara, no, why did you? Couldn't let you die, she gasped, vision blurring. Not alone. Never alone. The warehouse filled with more men, Min-seok's reinforcements, arriving too late but in force. Ji-hoon tried to run and was cut down. Zara heard gunshots, heard shouting, heard Min-seok screaming for a medic, for help, for someone to save her. I'm okay, she tried to say, but the words came out slurred. Min-seok, Don't you dare, he said fiercely, face above hers, tears streaming down his cheeks. Blood everywhere, hers, impossible to tell whose. Don't you dare leave me. You don't get to save me, and then die. That's not how this works. Love you, Zara whispered. Had to tell you. Had to. You already told me by coming here. By being so stupid and brave and perfect. He was sobbing now, this dangerous man reduced to tears. You were supposed to stay safe. You were supposed to survive. Surviving's not living. You taught me that. Sirens wailed in the distance. Medical training kicked in. Zara catalogued her own injury with detached precision. Shoulder wound, through and through, missed major arteries but blood loss significant. She'd live.
Probably.
I'm not dying, she said more clearly. But you might if you don't let them treat that side wound. Min-seok looked down, seemed to notice his own injury for the first time. I don't care. I do. Zara grabbed his face with her good hand. We're both living through this. Together. That's the deal. Paramedics swarmed. Min-seok's private medical team, not public services. They try to separate them, to treat their wounds. Min-seok refused to let go of her hand. Together, he repeated fiercely. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Forever, Zara agreed, and then the world went dark. Zara woke in a private hospital room so luxurious it barely resembled medical facilities. Afternoon light streamed through windows overlooking Seoul. Her shoulder throbbed with manageable pain. Good drugs, proper care. Min-seok sat in the chair beside her bed, cleaned up but exhausted, his side wrapped in bandages visible beneath his open shirt. He was holding her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her knuckles, eyes closed like he was praying. You're a terrible bodyguard, Zara said, voice hoarse. His eyes flew open. Relief crashed across his face, so profound it was almost painful to witness. You're awake. How long? 6 hours. You lost a lot of blood. Clean through and through, but... His voice cracked. You almost died. So did you. I'm used to almost dying. You're not. Min-seok stood, moved to sit on the edge of her bed, careful not to jostle her injury. His hand cupped her face with devastating gentleness. You weren't supposed to come. You were supposed to stay safe. I don't want safe if it means losing you. You could have died. So could you. That's the point. Zara leaned into his palm. You don't get to sacrifice yourself to protect me. We protect each other. That's how this works. That's not. Min-seok stopped, jaw clenching. I can't lose you. Then stop trying to face everything alone. Zara's voice was firm despite her exhaustion. I'm not some delicate thing that needs protecting from the world. I'm a trauma nurse who's been invisible her whole life until you. I'm a woman who chose to stand beside you knowing exactly what that meant. I'm yours, Min-seok, but that means you're mine too. And I protect what's mine. Something in his expression shattered, the last wall crumbling, the final defense falling. He pressed his forehead to hers, breathing her in like she was air. I love you, he whispered. I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you more than my empire, more than revenge, more than anything. And that makes you the most dangerous weakness I've ever had. Then I guess we're both vulnerable now, Zara said softly. Both weak. Both human. Both alive, Min-seok corrected, pulling back enough to meet her eyes. Because you were insane enough to disobey orders and save me. Taemin helped. Taemin is getting demoted for letting you leave. Taemin is getting promoted for having the good sense to help me save your stupid, heroic ass. Zara smiled despite the pain. What happened to Ji-hoon?
Dead.
My men made sure of it. Min-seok's voice went cold. 30 years I waited for justice. It's done. And Mina? Safe. Shaken but unhurt. I've paid off her student loans and given her a security detail until things settle. He brushed hair from Zara's face. I took care of the people you care about. That's what you do for the woman you love. Thank you. Don't thank me. His voice broke. Just don't ever scare me like that again. Don't ever choose to save me over saving yourself. Can't promise that, Zara said honestly. Because I'll always choose you. That's what love is. Min-seok kissed her then. Gentle, reverent, a promise and a claiming and a surrender all at once. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet. Marry me, he said. Zara blinked. What? Marry me. Not someday, not eventually.
Now.
As soon as you can walk without bleeding everywhere. His hand tightened on hers. I want you to be mine officially. I want the world to know you're protected, claimed, forever. His accent thickened. I want to spend every day for the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of the woman who was brave enough to save me. I'm still figuring out how to be visible, Zara said quietly. Still learning how to take up space, how to not apologize for existing. I'm broken in some ways you haven't seen yet. Then we'll figure it out together. We'll both be broken and visible and learning. Min-seok's smile was soft, genuine, transformative. Say yes, Zara. Choose me, choose us. Choose this dangerous, beautiful life we can build together. Zara looked at this man, this dangerous, damaged, devoted man who'd made her feel seen for the first time in her life, who'd protected her, claimed her, and finally accepted her protection in return, who taught her that love wasn't about safety but about being fully, terrifyingly alive. Yes, she whispered. Forever yes. They had chosen each other. Chosen love over safety, visibility over invisibility, dangerous devotion over comfortable loneliness. The cost had been blood and fear, and almost losing everything. But they'd survived. Together. And that was just the beginning. 3 days in the private hospital felt like 3 years. Zara watched Seoul through floor-to-ceiling windows while Min-seok conducted business from the chair beside her bed, refusing to leave except for his own medical checks. His men came and went, reporting in low voices, updating him on the cleanup from the warehouse incident. Park Ji-hoon's death had sent shockwaves through Seoul's underworld. With him gone, his entire organization had crumbled. Lieutenants arrested, operations ceased, territory absorbed into Min-seok's empire or handed over to authorities with convenient evidence packages. You're dismantling his legacy, Zara observed on the 3rd day, watching Min-seok review documents with Taemin. Completely. Min-seok's voice carried cold satisfaction. Every business he owned, every politician he bought, every dirty secret he kept, it's all coming to light. By the time I'm done, Park Ji-hoon will be remembered as the criminal he was, not the legitimate businessman he pretended to be. And your father? Min-seok's expression softened. My father's real legacy, his legitimate import business, his reputation for integrity, I'm restoring it. Setting up a foundation in his name. Legitimate enterprises that actually help people. He glanced at her. Thought you'd approve. Going legitimate? Partially. He set aside the documents, moved to sit on her bed. I'm not a good man, Zara. I won't pretend to be. But I can be better. For you. For the life we're building. The violent parts of my empire, the parts that hurt innocents, those are being phased out or handed over to people who handle them with more discretion. You're changing your entire life. I'm building a life worth living. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. Everything I was before was just survival, revenge, emptiness. You showed me there's more. I want more. With you. Before Zara could respond, Taemin cleared his throat. Boss. Your guest is here. Min-seok's expression went carefully neutral. Send her in. Her? Zara asked. The woman who entered was in her 60s, elegant in a traditional hanbok, her silver hair styled with precision. She carried herself with quiet authority, and her eyes, sharp and assessing, immediately found Zara. Amma, Min-seok said quietly, standing. Mother. Zara's heart stopped. Min-seok's mother was dead. He'd said so. Trauma and grief after his father's murder. But this woman. My aunt, Min-seok clarified, seeing her confusion. My father's younger sister. The only family I have left. The woman. Min-seok introduced her as Choi Hae-won, studied Zara with the kind of intensity that made her want to shrink, to apologize, to become invisible again. Instead, she lifted her chin and met Hae-won's gaze steadily. So you're the woman who made my nephew human again, Hae-won said in perfect English, her accent British from years abroad. I'm the woman who loves him, Zara corrected. Something flickered in Hae-won's expression, approval, perhaps. Min-seok told me what happened. How you disobeyed his orders, put yourself in danger, took a bullet meant for him. Yes, ma'am. Foolish. Probably. But brave. Hae-won moved closer, sat in the chair Min-seok had vacated. I left Korea after my brother died. Couldn't bear to watch Min-seok destroy himself with revenge. I thought I'd lost him to the darkness. Auntie, Min-seok started. But you brought him back. Haewon's eyes were wet. You made him remember there's more to life than blood and empire. You made him want to live, not just survive. He did the same for me, Zara said quietly. I know. Haewon reached out, took Zara's hand with surprising warmth. He told me everything. About you being a nurse, about your struggles, about how you saved his man, without judgment. About how you see him. Not the monster, not the kingpin, but the man underneath. That's all I've ever seen. Then you see more clearly than most. Haewon squeezed her hand gently. I won't pretend this will be easy. You're entering a world that doesn't easily accept outsiders. There will be people in our community who judge you for your race, your background, your lack of Korean heritage. Old-fashioned people with old-fashioned prejudices. I know, but Min-seok has chosen you, and the Choi family stands by its own. Haewon's voice carried absolute certainty. You are family now, Zara Okoye. Which means you have my protection, my support, and my love. Anyone who disrespects you disrespects me. Tears stung Zara's eyes. She'd been braced for rejection, for judgment, for the 1,000 ways families could make outsiders feel unwelcome. Instead, she'd found acceptance. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me. Just love my nephew as fiercely as he loves you. That's all I ask. Haewon stood, moved to Min-seok, and said something in rapid Korean that made his eyes redden. She kissed his forehead, then turned back to Zara. I'll be at the wedding, and I expect grandnieces or grandnephews eventually. No pressure. After she left, Min-seok sat heavily beside Zara, looking stunned. She approves. You sound surprised. I thought, he shook his head. I thought I'd lost her when I chose this life. Thought she'd never accept me, or anyone I loved. But she came. She accepted you immediately. She called you family. Maybe she just wanted you to be happy, Zara said softly. That's what family does. Min-seok kissed her temple, breathing her in. I don't deserve you. Good thing I'm not asking what you deserve. I'm just choosing who I love. Zara was discharged on the 5th day with strict instructions for wound care and physical therapy. Min-seok's penthouse had been transformed in her absence. It was no longer cold and impersonal. There were photos now, candid shots of them together, a framed picture of Min-seok's parents, art that felt warm instead of expensive. You redecorated, Zara said, taking it in. Made it a home. For us. Min-seok helped her settle on the couch, impossibly gentle with her injured shoulder. Your things from your apartment are in the closet. I had everything moved while you were in the hospital. And before you argue, I'm not letting you go back there. Ever. Controlling. Protective. He sat beside her, arm around her waist. Besides, you agreed to marry me. That means you live with me. Non-negotiable. When did I become so easy? Zara teased, but she was smiling. The moment you asked a dangerous stranger to dance. Min-seok's expression turned serious. Zara, there's something I need to show you. He pulled out a tablet, opened a bank account screen. The number of zeros made Zara's breath catch. This is yours, Min-seok said quietly. Your account. Money transferred from my legitimate businesses, nothing that can be traced to illegal operations. Enough that you never have to work unless you want to. Enough that your mother in Lagos is taken care of. Enough that you can go back to school, start a business, do whatever you've been dreaming of while you were just surviving. Min-seok, I can't. You can. And you will. His hand cupped her face. You saved my life. You changed my life. Let me give you the freedom to live yours fully. No more 60-hour weeks just to scrape by. No more choosing between groceries and student loan payments. No more making yourself invisible because you can't afford to take up space. Zara stared at the number, her mind struggling to comprehend that kind of financial security. Her entire life had been about survival, about stretching every dollar, about sacrifice. I still want to work, she said finally. Being a nurse, it's who I am. It's how I make a difference. Then work. But work because you want to, not because you have to. Work the shifts you choose. Take time off when you need it. Go back to school for your master's if that's what you want. Min-seok smiled. Be visible, Zara. Take up all the space you deserve. I'll make sure you can. Why are you so good to me? Because you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Because you make me want to be the man you see when you look at me. Because, his voice softened. Because I love you more than I thought I was capable of loving anything. Zara kissed him, pouring everything she couldn't say into the touch. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she rested her forehead against his. I love you too, she whispered. Even though you're impossible and controlling and slightly terrifying. Only slightly? Don't push it. 2 weeks later, Zara's shoulder had healed enough for limited movement. Min-seok insisted she accompany him to what he called important business meeting. Define important, Zara said, watching him button a shirt over his tattoos with practiced efficiency. The heads of Seoul's major organizations. Quarterly gathering to discuss territories, disputes, and mutual interests. He glanced at her. I've never brought anyone before. Why start now? Because they need to see you. Need to know you're under my protection. That you're not a weakness they can exploit. You're my partner. My equal. Untouchable. Min-seok's voice carried absolute authority. And because I want to show you my world. All of it. The business side, the power side. You deserve to understand everything you're choosing. The meeting was in a private room at one of Seoul's most exclusive restaurants, the kind where reservations were impossible unless your name carried weight. 6 men and 2 women sat around a large table, all impeccably dressed, all radiating power. They stood when Min-seok entered, respect in their postures. Their eyes tracked to Zara with curiosity and calculation. Everyone, Min-seok said, his hand on Zara's lower back. This is Zara Okoye, my fiancée. She is under my absolute protection. Any threat to her is a declaration of war against me personally. Are we clear? Nods around the table. Murmured agreements. One of the women, sharp-eyed, middle-aged, wearing designer everything, studied Zara with interest. The nurse who saved your lieutenant, and then saved you from Park Ji-hoon's trap. Kim Sunny, Min-seok introduced. She controls the Eastern Territory. Brave, Sunhee said to Zara directly. Or foolish. Haven't decided which yet. Both, probably, Zara said honestly. I don't really know what I'm doing in this world. None of us did at first. Sunhee's expression softened fractionally. But you learned quickly. Took a bullet for Storm. That earns respect. The meeting proceeded. Discussions of territory, shipments, mutual concerns. Zara listened, absorbing the dynamics, the power plays, the carefully negotiated respect. These people were criminals, yes, but they operated with codes, with honor in their own way. Halfway through, one of the men, younger, cocky, made a dismissive comment in Korean. Zara didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Disrespect. Min-seok's response was immediate and terrifying. He stood, voice dropping to lethal quiet, speaking Korean that made the young man go pale. The others at the table watched with varied expressions, some approving, some carefully neutral. In English, Sunhee prompted gently, so your lady understands. Min-seok switched languages, his gaze never leaving the young man. You disrespected my fiancé. In doing so, you disrespected me. Apologize.
Now.
Or we settle this the old way. The threat hung in the air. The young man stammered an apology, first in Korean, then in English directed at Zara. I apologize, Miss Okoye. My words were inappropriate. Accept it, Zara said quietly, though her heart was racing. Min-seok sat, his hand finding hers under the table, thumb brushing her knuckles in silent reassurance. The message had been sent. She was his. She was protected. She was to be respected. After the meeting in the car, Zara said quietly, You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Min-seok's voice was firm. Respect in my world is everything. They needed to know you're not just some woman I'm sleeping with. You're my partner. My equal. The future Mrs. Choi. Anyone who disrespects you will answer to me. Always. Min-seok had proposed in a hospital room, raw and desperate and real.
But he wanted to do it properly, he said.
So 2 days after the syndicate meeting, he took Zara back to where it all began. A Crimson Eclipse looked different, empty. It was afternoon, the club closed, but Min-seok had keys, had permission, had probably bought the entire venue for the hour. The lights were dim, music playing softly, the same song they'd danced to that first night. "You're recreating our first dance," Zara said, recognizing the setup. "I'm making new memories." Min-seok offered his hand, the same way he had 3 months ago. But everything was different now. He was hers, she was his, and the terror of that first meeting had transformed into something deeper. They danced in the empty club, no crowd to disappear into, no stalker to escape, no desperation, just them, choosing each other with full awareness and total commitment. "You asked me to make him stop watching," Min-seok murmured against her hair. "You had no idea what you were starting, did you?"
No.
"I thought I'd solve your problem, you'd thank me, and that would be it." His arms tightened around her. "I didn't expect you to become everything." "Everything. My reason for breathing. My reason for being better. My home." He pulled back enough to look at her, reaching into his pocket. "I proposed in a hospital room because I was terrified of losing you. But you deserve better. You deserve this." The ring was stunning, a deep blue sapphire surrounded by diamonds, the band inscribed with Korean characters. "It says forever visible," Min-seok translated. "Because you were invisible before me, and I was invisible to myself before you. But together, we're seen. We're real. We're alive." Min-seok. "Marry me, Zara Okoye." He slid the ring onto her finger, the fit perfect. "Not because you need protection, not because you're afraid, but because you love me despite knowing exactly who and what I am. Marry me, and let me spend my life proving I'm worthy of the woman brave enough to save me." "You already proved that," Zara said, tears streaming down her face. "Every day, every moment, every time you see me when the world taught me to be invisible." "Is that a yes?" "It's been yes, since the moment you asked me to dance." Zara kissed him, tasting salt and joy and forever. "Yes to you, yes to us, yes to this dangerous, beautiful life we're building. Forever yes." The music played on, wrapping around them like a promise. And in that empty club where fear had driven her into his arms, love kept her there willingly. 6 weeks later, Zara stood in front of the mirror in Min-seok's, their penthouse, barely recognizing herself. The woman staring back wore confidence like armor. Her natural hair was styled in beautiful braids woven with gold thread, her makeup subtle but enhancing. The dress Min-seok had bought her was deep emerald green, designer fabric that moved like water, cut to flatter, without revealing too much. But it wasn't the external changes that made her unrecognizable. It was the way she held herself. Shoulders back, chin up, taking up space without apology. Visible. Present.
Real.
"You're staring at yourself," Min-seok said from the doorway, already dressed in a charcoal suit that made him look dangerous and beautiful. "I'm trying to figure out who this woman is," Zara admitted. "She's you. Always has been. You just finally see what I saw from the beginning." He crossed to her, arms wrapping around her waist from behind. In the mirror, they made a striking picture, contrasts that somehow fit perfectly. Beautiful.
Strong.
Worthy. "I went back to work yesterday," Zara said.
Part-time.
3 shifts a week instead of 6. "How did it feel?"
Good.
"Different. I actually enjoyed it instead of just surviving it." She leaned back against him. "And I enrolled in the master's program. Start in the fall. I'm proud of you. I also set up the foundation we talked about. For women from struggling backgrounds who want to become nurses or go to medical school." Zara met his eyes in the mirror. "Using some of the money from my account. Making sure other girls don't have to be invisible to survive." Min-seok's arms tightened around her. "You're changing the world. One small piece at a time. The way you're changing yours." She'd watched him transform his empire over the past weeks, shutting down operations that hurt innocents, increasing wages for legitimate employees, funding community programs. Still a kingpin, still dangerous, but adding light to balance the darkness. We're quite a pair. The nurse and the criminal. The man and the woman who saved each other. They stood in comfortable silence, holding each other, visible and present and whole. Ready? Min-seok asked finally. Everyone's waiting. Tonight was their engagement party. A blend of both their worlds, both their cultures. Korean tradition mixed with Nigerian celebration, underworld figures mingling with hospital co-workers, family and found family coming together.
Ready, Zara said.
Let's go be visible together. The venue was stunning. A gallery Min-seok had rented, decorated with touches from both cultures. Traditional Korean lanterns alongside African prints. A buffet featuring both Korean dishes and Nigerian food that Min-seok had flown in a chef to prepare properly. Zara's mother had flown in from Lagos, her first time in Korea, overwhelmed but joyful. She'd hugged Min-seok and cried, saying in Yoruba that he was a blessing, that her daughter finally looked happy, truly happy. Hae-won presided over the Korean side with elegant authority, introducing Zara to extended family and business associates with pride. My nephew's fiancé, she said repeatedly. Family. Mina was there, bright-eyed and grateful, fully recovered from her ordeal. She'd brought other nurses from Seoul General, and they surrounded Zara with laughter and love. Taemin and Min-seok's other lieutenants stood at the perimeter, still protecting, still vigilant, but relaxed enough to smile and accept congratulations. He had come, bringing a stunning gift and genuine warmth. You're good for him, she told Zara. Made Storm remember he's human. That's worth protecting. As the evening wore on, Min-seok pulled Zara onto the dance floor. A Korean ballad played, slow and melodic. This is different from Crimson Eclipse, Zara said. Better? So much better. She rested her head on his shoulder, swaying with him. No fear. No desperation. No stalker watching. Just us. Just us, she agreed. Finally, Min-seok's hands played possessively on her lower back. I need to tell you something. Zara's stomach clenched. What? I'm legitimizing more of my operations. Working with prosecutors to take down the truly violent organizations in exchange for immunity for my past actions. It'll take time, but in 5 years, maybe less, the Choi empire will be mostly legitimate. Why? Because I want children with you eventually. And I want them to be proud of their father, not afraid of what he is. His voice was rough. I want to build something good. With you. For us. For the family we'll create. Tears pricked Zara's eyes. You do that? Change everything. I already did. The moment I saw you. He pulled back enough to meet her gaze. You made me want to be better, Zara. Now I'm becoming that better man. For you. For us. For the life we're building. I love you, Zara whispered. I love you more. Min-seok kissed her softly, tenderly, a promise for all the tomorrows they'd create together. Around them, the party continued, 2 worlds blending, 2 families merging, 2 people who'd saved each other now celebrating the life they'd build together. 5 months after that desperate dance in Crimson Eclipse, Zara and Min-seok returned to the club. This time, it was open, pulsing with music and bodies, everyone living their own desperate or joyful stories. Zara wore red, a color she'd avoided before, too visible, too bold. Now she wore it like armor, like celebration. Min-seok kept her close, his hand never leaving her waist, marking her as is for everyone to see. They found their spot on the dance floor, the place where everything had changed. 92 days I ran, Zara said, repeating the words from that first night. And then I stopped running. And crashed into me, Min-seok finished. Best collision of my life. They danced, their bodies moving in sync, no longer strangers, but partners in every sense. The music wrapped around them, the crowd gave them space without even realizing it, and for a moment, they were back in that first dance. Desperate girl, dangerous man, impossible choice. But everything was different now. She wasn't running anymore. He wasn't empty anymore. They'd chosen each other, fought for each other, bled for each other, and come out the other side transformed. Sometimes, Zara said against his shoulder, the only real safety is in the arms of the most dangerous person in the room. And sometimes, Min-seok said, lips against her temple, the most dangerous person in the room just needed someone brave enough to see him as human. They swayed together, visible and present and completely alive. Zara Okoye, who'd spent her life invisible, now shone like a beacon. Min-seok Choi, who'd been dead inside for decades, now lived fully for the first time. Thank you, Min-seok whispered. For what?
For asking me to dance.
For seeing me. For saving me. His arms tightened around her. For choosing me, every single day. Forever, Zara promised. I choose you forever. And in that moment, in that club, in that dance, they came full circle. The fear that had driven her to him had transformed into love. The emptiness that had defined him had filled with her. Two broken people had found each other in the darkness and built something beautiful in the light. The song ended. They didn't separate. They never would again. The morning sun painted Seoul's skyline in shades of gold and rose. Zara stood on the penthouse balcony, coffee in hand, watching the city wake up beneath her. Behind her, through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see Min-seok moving through their home. Their true home now, filled with photographs and warmth and life. 2 years. 2 years since that desperate dance in Crimson Eclipse. 2 years since she'd traded invisibility for the most visible life imaginable. 2 years since fear had driven her into the arms of Seoul's most dangerous man, and love had convinced her to stay. Everything had changed. Zara caught her reflection in the glass door. Master's degree complete, she now supervised the trauma unit at Seoul General 3 days a week. The other days, she ran the Okoye Foundation, which had already put 20 young women through nursing school. Her hair was natural, styled in goddess locks today, gold thread woven through them catching the morning light. She wore one of Min-seok's shirts over her sleep shorts, the ring on her finger catching fire in the sunrise. Not just the engagement ring anymore. 2 months ago, they'd married in a ceremony that blended Korean and Nigerian traditions, a hanbok and traditional wrapper, vows in 3 languages, both their worlds coming together to celebrate what everyone agreed was inevitable from that first dance. Mrs. Choi Zara Choi Okoye, the nurse who'd saved the kingpin and became his queen. You're thinking loud, Min-seok said, wrapping his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. He smelled like sleep and cedar and home. Just remembering. The beginning? Everything. Zara leaned back into his warmth. How terrified I was. How invisible I'd made myself. How I thought one dance would solve my stalker problem, and instead it changed my entire life. Regrets. His voice was carefully neutral, but she felt the tension in his arms. Even now, after 2 years of choosing each other daily, he still feared she'd realize what she'd sacrificed. Not even one, Zara said firmly, turning in his arms to face him. You gave me a life, Min-seok. A real life. Not just survival, but living. His expression softened, the dangerous edges smoothing into something tender and vulnerable. You gave me a soul, Zara. Made me human again. Made me want to be better. And he had become better. The Choi empire was now 70% legitimate: real estate, import, export, technology investments. The remaining 30% was managed by trusted lieutenants with strict codes: no drugs, no human trafficking, no violence against innocents. Min-seok had become a philanthropist, his name attached to hospitals and schools and community centers. The monster was becoming a man. But for Zara, he'd always been both. And she loved all of him. Breakfast? She asked, running her fingers through his hair. In a minute. Min-seok cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone with the same reverent gentleness he'd shown from the beginning. I want to stay here. In this moment. With you. We have all our moments, Zara reminded him. All our mornings. All our forevers. Not enough. 1,000 lifetimes wouldn't be enough with you. She kissed him, soft and slow and full of promise. 2 years, and every kiss still felt like the first one. Still felt like claiming and surrender and home. When they broke apart, Min-seok rested his forehead against hers. I have something to tell you. Good something or bad something? Terrifying something. He took her hand, placed it on his chest where his heart hammered. But good. Very good. They settled on the couch, Zara curled against Min-seok's side, his arm around her shoulders. Seoul spread out before them through the windows, a city that had witnessed their transformation, their love story written in blood and devotion across its streets. The last of my illegal operations are being shut down next month, Min-seok said quietly. Everything will be legitimate. Legal. Clean. Zara pulled back to look at him. Everything. Everything. His jaw clenched. I've been working with prosecutors for 18 months, providing evidence against the truly violent organizations testifying under protection, dismantling the parts of the underworld that prey on the weak. In exchange, full immunity for past crimes. A clean slate. Min-seok. I know what I'm giving up. Power.
Fear.
The empire I built from blood and revenge. He met her gaze. But I'm gaining more. A life I can be proud of. A legacy that isn't just violence. The ability to give our children, when we have them, a father they don't have to lie about. Tears burned Zara's eyes. You're doing this for them? For children we don't even have yet. I'm doing this for us. For you. For the man you make me want to be. His voice broke slightly. I want to be worthy of you, Zara. Not as Storm, not as the monster people fear, but as Min-seok. As your husband. As the father of your children. As a good man. You already are, Zara whispered fiercely. You've always been good to me. Good for me. Everything I needed. But I can be better. I am better. Because of you. She kissed him, tasting salt, his tears or hers, impossible to tell. When she pulled back, she took his hand and placed it on her stomach. Then you should know, she said softly, that you're going to be a father sooner than you think. Min-seok froze. His eyes went wide, then dropped to where his hand rested against her abdomen. You're 8 weeks. I found out yesterday. Zara smiled through her tears. I was going to tell you at dinner, make it romantic and special. But this moment, right here, right now, this is better. This is us. Real and imperfect and perfect. A baby. Min-seok's voice was wonder and terror mixed. His hand spread wider, protective and possessive. Our baby. Our baby, Zara confirmed. Who will grow up knowing their father is a good man. A man who chose to be better. A man who built something beautiful from ashes. Min-seok dropped to his knees in front of her, his face level with her stomach. He pressed his forehead against her, breathing deeply, his hands gentle on her hips. I'll protect you both, he whispered in Korean then English. I'll give you everything. I'll be everything you need. I promise. I swear. I know, Zara said, running her fingers through his hair. I've always known. That evening, they returned to Crimson Eclipse one last time. The club pulsed with its usual energy, beautiful people living their beautiful lives, unaware that in this very room, 2 years ago, a terrified nurse had asked a dangerous stranger to dance and changed both their fates forever. Zara wore red again, a flowing dress that accommodated her slight baby bump, her locks piled high on her head, gold jewelry catching the club lights. She was visible, radiant, completely present. The woman who'd made herself small her entire life now commanded attention without trying. Min-seok was devastating in all black, his tattoos visible at his collar and wrists, his hand possessive on her lower back. People noticed them. How could they not? The power couple of Seoul, the kingpin going legitimate and the nurse who tamed him, the fairy tale written in violence and love. They found their spot on the dance floor. The same spot. Always the same spot. The DJ, whether by request or cosmic coincidence, played their song. The one from that first desperate dance. 2 years ago, Zara said as Min-seok pulled her close, I asked you to make a stalker stop watching me. And I said I'd make sure he never looked at you again, Min-seok finished, his accent wrapping around the words like silk. You did more than that. You made me visible, made me matter, made me alive. You did the same for me. His hand splayed over her stomach, protective even in public. Gave me a reason to be better. A reason to want forever. They swayed together, bodies in perfect sync, two people who'd learned each other's rhythms through blood and devotion and daily choice. Around them, the club moved, life continued, but they existed in their own moment. Do you ever think about that night? Zara asked. About how different things could have been? Every day. Min-seok's voice was rough. If you hadn't been desperate enough to ask a stranger for help. If I hadn't been there that exact moment. If I'd ignored you, or handled it differently, we would have missed each other completely. Fate. Choice. He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. You chose to ask for help instead of running. I chose to give it instead of walking away. We chose each other every moment after, even when it was terrifying, even when it was bloody, even when it would have been easier to quit. I'd choose you again, Zara said. In every universe, every timeline, every possibility, I'd choose you. Even knowing the cost, the danger, the violence, especially knowing, because the cost of not choosing you would have been higher. I would have stayed invisible, stayed small, stayed barely alive. She cupped his face. You made me want to live, Min-seok. Really, truly live. That's worth everything. He kissed her there on the dance floor, claiming her mouth like he'd claimed her heart. Absolutely, completely, forever. When they broke apart, both breathless, his forehead rested against hers. Thank you, he whispered, the words carrying 2 years of gratitude. For seeing me, for saving me, for loving me when I didn't deserve it. You always deserved it, Zara corrected. You just had to believe you did. The song ended. Another began. They kept dancing. Because this was their place. Where fear became love. Where invisibility became presence. Where two broken people found each other and became whole. Later, much later, they stood on their balcony again. Seoul glittered beneath them, a city of millions of stories, and theirs was written in lights and shadows across its streets. What do you think happens now? Zara asked, her hand in Min-seok's, their fingers intertwined. We live, Min-seok said simply. We raise our child. We build our empire, the legal one, the good one. We make the world better in small ways. We love each other fiercely. We keep choosing each other every single day. That's it? That's simple? That complicated? He smiled, the expression transforming his dangerous features into something soft and human. But we've survived worse. We can handle happiness. Zara laughed, the sound bright and free. You're right. We're much better at the impossible. Then it's good that forever is impossible, Min-seok said, pulling her close. Because we're going to do it anyway. And they did. The nurse and the kingpin. The invisible woman and the feared man. The two broken souls who found each other in the darkness and built a life in the light. They danced through it all. The joy and the pain, the fear and the triumph, the quiet moments and the dramatic ones. They danced through pregnancy and parenthood, through empire building and legacy creating, through every challenge that tried to break them. And they never stopped dancing. Because that's what love is. A dance where both people choose to keep moving together, even when the music is terrifying, even when the steps are uncertain, even when the cost is high. They chose each other. Every day. Every moment. Forever. And that dance, that beautiful, dangerous, impossible dance, that was everything. 5 years later, a little girl with Zara's eyes and Min-seok's sharp features spun in circles in their living room, laughing as her father chased her. Again, Appa. Again. Min-seok scooped her up, spinning her until she squealed with delight. Zara watched from the doorway, one hand on her pregnant belly, their second child, a boy this time, and felt her heart so full it might burst. This was the life that started with a desperate question. Could you dance with me? This was the answer. Forever yes. Always yes. In every way that matters, yes. And in Crimson Eclipse, where it all began, the music still played. The lights still pulsed. And somewhere in that crowd, maybe another desperate soul was gathering courage to ask a dangerous stranger for help. Maybe their story was just beginning too. Because that's the thing about love found in darkness. It doesn't just save you. It transforms you. Makes you brave enough to be visible, strong enough to be vulnerable, alive enough to risk everything. And sometimes, the most dangerous choice you can make is to ask someone to dance. But it's always, always worth it. So that's Zara and Min-seok's story. From that first desperate dance to forever, a love story written in blood and devotion, fear and courage, darkness and light. But here's what I want to know. What was your favorite moment? Was it when Zara first asked Min-seok to dance, trading one danger for another? Was it when he revealed he'd been watching her for weeks, not as a stalker, but as someone who'd finally found something worth protecting? Was it the warehouse scene where she took a bullet for him? Or maybe it was the quiet moments, the morning conversations, the cultural exchanges, the transformation from survival to living? Drop a comment below and tell me which scene hit you hardest. Because these stories, these dark, dangerous, beautiful love stories, they resonate because they speak to something we all crave. Being seen, being chosen, being loved so completely that someone would fight the world to keep us safe. Zara spent her whole life invisible until Min-seok made her matter. And Min-seok spent his whole life empty until Zara made him human. That's the power of love that sees past the surface to the soul underneath. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Let me know this style of storytelling, this raw, emotional, unapologetically dramatic romance, is what you want more of. And subscribe if you haven't already.